Hello, Carol Taylor-Kearney here at Powell Arts, and I am standing with the fantastic Nina Yocom, and Nina is going to tell us about these two beautiful art pieces.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Well, the first one I'll talk about is called Melting. This was kind of a really fun piece for me to work on. A lot of my alcohol ink, I feel like it gets a little too serious. So this was a wonderful opportunity with this Portray-It theme to really bring out some of my work that is a little bit unusual and a little bit more fun. So this little fellow came about as I was working with alcohol ink. Alcohol inks are kind of similar to watercolor in that they're fluid. The inks actually they flow with isopropyl alcohol rather than water with watercolor. So that's the main difference. They're very, very vibrant. There are a lot of really cool colors and combinations. And one tool that I do use with this is called a heat gun. It's kind of like a hairdryer. And you can push the alcohol inks along the surface. And in this case, I used just some primary colors. I really wanted to just keep it very simple, almost childlike, almost like a simple, very accessible design. Lo and behold, as I was working on this little fellow, he came about, and I just started seeing this figure melting.
Yeah.
And he asked for a set of eyes. So just using a couple dots of white acrylic. One of the fun things about working with alcohol ink is that you can layer on top of the alcohol ink once it's dried. If you leave it unfinished or unvarnished, it will pick up the colors that are underneath. So this guy has glowing, kind of pinkish red eyeballs.
I love how playful it is, and I love that not only does it look like a melted little guy, but also it looks like the colors actually literally melt into each other.
Well, you're saying that, and I picked up automatically when I saw it on the eyes and how directed the gaze is. And so it's like an abstracted portrait. And so with Portray-It, we were playing with the idea that you could portray something in action, a person.
A person, place, thing, idea.
Right.
And this does this on multiple levels, yeah.
Right, because you also have a portrait. And so we looked at him, and I don't know why I say him, because it could be a him, it could be a her, but to me it was like, I'm not sure if he's peeking out at me over this, or if he's sticking his tongue out at me going,
Exactly.
And it was so much fun.
He definitely has a face, an expression.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's cool because like I was saying earlier, like it portrays something on two levels. Like it both is figurative and like more traditional portrait, but it also is portraying the act of melting.
Exactly.
Like, which is great.
He's definitely in action.
Yeah, that's they're in action.
They're spreading out.
I also love this little,
I do too. Yeah.
You know, we have two little like the yellows here and then the separate circle. How did that come about?
That just kind of came about when I was placing the colors on the, it's called Yocom paper, which is synthetic paper. And one of the cool things about the alcohol inks is they remain vibrant and they do not muddy. So they stay separate. And in this case, I just wanted to have some separate color that would play off of the magenta, bright pink. And that's why I flipped this yellow over here. But as you can see, when you push out the alcohol ink color, you can also pick up, and it actually will form some of these pinks that are around the blues and the purples as well.
It gives it a nice trace back to the primaries and how the primaries interact to create secondaries, which I think is cool.
Is wonderful. And at the same time, I look at this compositionally and I feel object, and this all of a sudden has given me a setting. And so it's not that some object, some head is just like floating.
It's anchored.
It's anchored, yeah, and it just seems so important to have that. And, brilliant composition.
So
Thank you.
I want to talk about Show Me the Way Home because, and we're going to insert a very close detail of this because you've always played with placing dots, but this is more elaborate than that. And it, like both of these they're both intrinsically, and you can tell that they're yours. It's your
Yeah.
style and signature, but you're playing with a little bit of the way that the composition and the detail and stuff. So can you talk a little bit about Show Me the Way Home?
Sure. Show Me the Way Home came about with the alcohol inks and pushing out the colors with the heat tool. But in this case, I felt compelled to finish the piece. It did not look finished. And there was something about the imagery, the layout, that was so appealing to the use of fine liner pen. Fine liner pen works beautifully on top of alcohol ink. Usually I dot. I do very tiny little dots. But in this case, I felt compelled to add some detail in separate sections, and each little section has its own unique set of little
Marks.
tiny marks.
Yeah.
My favorite, I think, and when you get into the close-up, this figure almost reminded me of an angel leading you home.
Yes, I can see that.
Which is
Yes.
where I kind of saw it. Everything is eye of the beholder. But even these fun little offsets of little dots and pieces just felt like they just wanted to be part of the piece and they wanted to play.
Yeah.
So this one just wanted to be playful.
Yeah.
And I just enjoyed just adding that detail, in particular to some of the more greenish areas, but also in some of the bluish areas as well.
Yeah.
This area up at the top, when the alcohol ink does kind of layer out and flow, this almost reminded me of hair flowing. And then I just thought, oh, it would look so cool to have these tiny little dots right at the very end of those little waves, little wavelets. So that was a lot of fun to work with.
Well, and I'm looking at that, and the variety. On the one hand, the lines are pretty much of equal weight, but the way that you've put each one of them together, each section becomes weighted on its own. And it reminds me of, like when I first looked at it, I'm like, oh, what's she using? Is she using fabric there? Is she using, there looks like a little piece of brocade. It looks like a little piece of stone.
Kind of like a tapestry.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, very much. And then you also use it in a way that reminds me of the little marks the cartoonists will use in order to show emotion.
Emotion, also movement, things
yes.
like that. And I like that also you've called it Show Me the Way Home, and it's a directive. And then you've directed your eye through the piece with the pattern, which is really nice. Like, I like that. It's a map of it's almost like a map to this piece.
Exactly.
So.
Wonderful, yeah. Thank you.
So did you, when you were doing the marks, were you thinking, well, what kind of pattern do I want in this next area? Or did each area kind of tell you what kind of mark to make?
Each area told me. So the painting, very often when I'm interacting with the painting, it will tell me what it wants. And I just sit down and let it I sit, I look at it, I turn it around, and then as I'm working on the piece, I keep turning it. So
that makes sense.
It's not just, I'm looking at it flat. So I'm constantly turning it, and then ultimately the painting will tell me how it wants to lay out, because it would be portrait or landscape. But it's very interesting that I do love fabrics. I love textiles, but I don't work with them.
Right.
But I do like the look of them.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is part of what I was doing with this piece as well.
Well, I will say that Nina wears some of the most interesting clothing.
Interesting is dynamic and stylish clothing.
Yes.
Because interesting can have weird
Multiple
connotations.
meanings, but no.
But no, we talked earlier that we love your shirt and it goes so well with
With your
the
piece.
mark making in this one. I didn't even think of that until she said it.
No.
But
Yeah. So it makes sense that you say something like that.
That you like pattern
But I
and
am
fabric, yeah.
As
Exactly.
I'm thinking more towards somebody who would buy one of these pieces.
Mhm.
And they look at it and they're beautifully presented and they're presented like this. How do you feel about someone who would say, oh, I really like that, but you know what, in my room, I might want to turn this into more of a horizontal, or I might want to. Are you married to a single format?
Not at all, not at all, and very frequently, that's part of the reason why sometimes I don't like to sign my work, is because
That's
it
funny.
can be turned. And as a matter of fact, this was in a show, and it was turned
Oh, that's
when
funny.
I arrived.
Oh, did you turn it right side?
I did. But it
I would
was
always
very
be like,
interesting, you know, the program had it this way. But interestingly enough, someone said, I think it should have gone that way. So
Yeah.
no, I'm never married to it.
Okay,
Yeah,
I wasn't sure because
It can always be changed, and one of the neat things about these Nielsen frames is that they can be easily changed to be portrait or landscape.
yeah.
all right. Well, the other thing too that people should remember is whenever you have a composition that you can show from every side, that means that composition is perfectly
Balanced, yeah. We were talking to somebody else about that a little bit earlier, that one of the interesting things is when you have a really strong balanced composition, it works from all angles.
Yep.
And it also works at a multitude of sizes, and which is something I find, you know,
refreshing. And
Refreshing.
after the pieces that you gave us for our small work show, which were absolutely beautiful, they're called portals. Make sure you look it up. But these are larger.
yeah, these
And-
are positively huge compared to the portals.
But the portals are nice because you could have multiples of them
Yeah.
on your wall.
So, but these are one of the things I think is fun, like not funny, haha, but interesting, funny. Like funny is that you talk about how the ink and the composition and thing is very intuitive, and yet you are, and I think these are great qualities that are meeting. You are a very meticulous person, like, and so it shows this nice meeting of like almost like this Zen-like quality where you are both curating and putting things together in a controlled sense and a meticulous sense, but that you also have this understanding that organic elements are going to do what organic elements are going to do.
Perfect balance.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so
Perfectly said.
yeah, I love it. I think
Thank
it's and I think it's one of the things that people really appreciate about your work is that they can feel both of those things at the same time, so it makes them feel refreshed. So I would say that your work is refreshing.
Wonderful. I love that. Thank you.
And joyful.
Yes,
Yay.
I would say
Yes.
that too.
Thank you.
Yes.
So
So, yes, I know.
that's the second time we've done that together.
I know. It must be our thing today. One more time.
So
Please come in and see Nina Yocom's two beautiful pieces at Powell Arts in Portray-It, from,
January 19th through March 12th.
thank you. Thanks, Nina.
Thank you very much.